All right, we have our one agenda item. So what I want to do is kind of take everybody through, I call it maybe a pathway forward for New London, and it's based on what we've done as a committee as a whole. And so I'm hoping each one of you sees maybe something in here that you contributed throughout the process. I kind of just collected all the thoughts. I used a comparison when on Marty's show the other day. I grabbed all the papers from the sky, took it in a big sausage machine, cranked the lever, hopefully a nice sausage came out the bottom. That might be a good pathway forward. But so the idea is...
That's for the record.
That's for the record.
That's for the record. Making sausage.
So I'll just take you through the page one, and then we'll go through it. If anybody has any questions from the committee, I'll get to you afterwards, but please feel free to interrupt me. If you have any comments, if you want additions, deletions, I'm up for everything. I've taken all of you through this. I've taken a ton of other people through it for feedback, comments, good, bad, ugly. But I'll just take you through. So to start at the top, our committee was formed because pay-as-you-throw was trying to be implemented in New London. And the council came together and they created the Solid Waste Management Task Force. And as you know, we have 3 goals: increase recycling, reduce municipal solid waste or MSW volume, and garner community support. And that's it. We didn't have any other additional goals. We didn't have a time frame. We didn't have a budget. We didn't have anything else to work from. So going through different things, what the Solid Waste Management Task Force did accomplish, or how we went about accomplishing our 3 goals, I just started with a list. So for number 1, we reviewed pay-as-you-throw comments from residents at council meetings as well as other public meetings, just to know where we were, what were people opposing with pay-as-you-throw. We also reviewed pay-as-you-throw comments from councilors at council meetings and other meetings. The first meeting I went through and I handed out a collection of all the comments that came from the day and other places. Within our meetings, many times we had comments about private conversations we may have had with each other or residents or that type of thing. And then we collated the comments, and this is what this is, from our committee, as well as in private conversations. Over the course of the meeting, we went through many articles on recycling, solid waste trends locally, statewide, nationwide, and also worldwide to see kind of where we stand and where we may be in the future. And then the last part is we collated all the comments from our committee, the guests, and I just kind of listed out the guests. I don't have to go through them all. We were all here for that. What we were not asked to consider, but I believe our committee did either directly or we went around the issues, was we weren't asked to find a revenue stream, including capturing our nonprofits. We weren't asked to consider the costs of a pathway forward. We weren't asked to consider the jobs of our current employees. We weren't asked to consider risks and costs associated with risk. We weren't asked to consider the state of Connecticut's short and long-term goals for recycling and solid waste. And we weren't asked to consider the motto in New London, live, work, and invest. But I think the committee did those, maybe not directly, but we took them into account. Going through all the pay-as-you-throw concerns, I just made a list of what I heard. And it's a short one, but pay-as-you-throw is a double tax. Residents do not like bags. There was no study particular to New London and our needs. Pay-as-you-throw is a state program. Bags would break and litter the city with trash. There's a lack of education about the pay-as-you-throw program or general recycling, and residents did not have anything to put their recycling in. So what I'm hoping this does is take all of those off the table and puts aside a lot of the residents' concerns. So we can go to page 2 unless anybody has comments, questions, anything. Okay. So what I did is I just kind of have 2 recommendations on here. There's some other things in here, but I think in our first meeting, if we had taken a vote, we would have said we need receptacles to put recycling in. And I put down here, the City of New London must provide 96-gallon recycling carts or cans for each establishment at no cost, and 1 additional cart if needed. It has to be accompanied, and we've talked about it before, including like when CJ May came in, education. Anything we provide to our citizens has to be accompanied by education to make sure we're doing it properly. Otherwise, there's no point in doing it. We're going to put garbage in our recycling, and it's just going to be contamination, and eventually it's kind of a waste of time. So it has to be accompanied with the recycling carts. I added one thing on here. I'm not sure if anybody in our city is going to use 3 96-gallon recycling carts. It's possible, and we can talk about this, but I'm wondering if instead of providing 3, we would charge them that cost for the third one. We would still pick it up at no cost, but providing an extra one. I just don't feel that we're going to have anybody doing 192 gallons of recycling in a week. That seems kind of extraordinary to me. The second recommendation I kind of have here is we talked, and a lot of our guests have talked about basically you pay for what you use, and that's what utility is. And so, and one of the things I just went through and tried to define the utility, I went through the dictionary, I went through Londrigan, Jeff Londrigan, the law director, but I felt the best place to get a real definition of a public utility would be with Joe Lanzafame, who is our director of public utilities. And he says a utility uses a fee-based system. The fee is calculated based on the customer's impact to the system. There's a dedicated enterprise fund separate and independent of the general fund. And then it has a credit program to reward customers who reduce their impact. So if you take what our city does now, water is billed on usage, electricity is billed on usage, gas is billed on usage, and I wrote it out. Trash is currently allowed in New London based on these ordinances. The definition is ordinary non-commercial wastes are general and usual waste that accumulate from operation of residential homes and small apartment structures, including garbage, rubbish, and recyclable materials, but not exceeding 10 30-gallon barrels per collection day, or 300 gallons a week. It's a lot. Unfortunately, when you go down through the ordinances and you get to 1153, they drop the amount, so it's just 10 barrels. So our ordinances are not really consistent the way they're written. It just says 10 barrels of garbage or their equivalent placed at the curb at any one establishment or on any scheduled collection day. To me, that means you can put out 10 96-gallon ones or whatever size you want. Obviously, the ordinances have to be addressed overall, and they're also very old. But I met with Dave Aldridge today. We're not alone. Most ordinances around in the Skura district are written in the 80s, and we just haven't updated. So just keep that in mind. New London's not special in that respect. Any questions?
How are we, how are you planning on doing that?
Doing which part?
The ordinance. Get the ordinance updated.
I'm not sure if it's up to the committee to update any of the ordinances. I think we should put forward that the ordinances should be updated. We can go through and redo them ourselves. I don't think that should be the committee goal. I think also each ordinance may be impacted by some other ordinance in a different section that we might not be privy to or might not have the time to do. So I don't know who would be doing them, but I think it would behoove us to say the ordinances have to be rewritten to support whatever we're going to do.
Where you've seen inconsistencies.
Yes.
I think this would be prudent for this committee to report that.
Sure, absolutely. I wouldn't even say sometimes there's inconsistencies, but sometimes things no longer even exist.
Irrelevancies.
Right.
Moot or whatever.
Yeah, and that's really just a matter of sitting down and taking the time to go through them. And there are some words we just don't really use anymore. It's not in the those ordinances, but I always think of my grandparents was called a couch a Davenport. We call it a couch now. And it's the same thing with some of the ordinances. We just use different terms, throughout the time period. But I would agree, if there are inconsistencies, maybe our committee should go through them and say this, and this, or it's possible we should say we just need to scrap it all and start from the beginning, because it is 30 to 40 years old. And things have changed in our city. We didn't recycle until 25-ish years ago.
We started all
But that was a big push.
Yeah, I think that when Ruby Turner Morris was on council and was mayor, she made an effort to promote recycling.
Sure.
I mean, perhaps by the standards of the day, embryonic, but it was a start.
And actually, as Marty brings it up, you'll see, I think they're very neat. Some of the older recycling carts, there's a whale, there's a little spout, and different things. I think there's one at the senior center. But you'll see them every now and then, which is, I enjoy history, so I think it's kind of neat.
I think when Ruby was doing this, I mean, we put you put a metal canopy, you didn't use these
Right.
garbage pails we use now, you stored it in a tin can, and put a lid, and then you put a red dot on it, and that would be the
The
recycling.
recycling can. We migrated to blue, at least for now. Did anybody else have any comments, questions, anything on that page? Okay. So what I basically did is took the water, electricity, gas, and trash and just converted it into a picture, which is what you see at the top. And one of the big complaints with Pay As You Throw is the second you start the program, you're going to be paying out of pocket for your bag. Under this concept, no one would be paying anything on the first day, because if you have just one garbage cart and a newly provided recycling cart, it would come with your taxes. If you're a nonprofit, you would still get one of each. But when you go into the next category of additional garbage carts, you would be charged per garbage cart per pickup day. So if you have picked up once a week, you would get charged once. If you get picked up twice a week, you get picked up twice. So the number I used was $84 per year per pickup day. So at all of our houses, it would be $84 for each additional garbage cart that you would have per year. If you're in the Center City Tax District or you're in the Industrial District, some of them get picked up twice a week, so it'd simply be double. So it'd be $168 for each garbage can that they have. In addition, so you can just do the math. If you take a 96-gallon garbage cart and then you take the manufacturer's rating, if you filled it to the absolute brim, every time they filled it, it would equal 250 pounds, and it would cost the City of New London, in its tipping fees alone, $377 per year to empty the garbage cart. That's not counting labor, gas, wear and tear, all the other things that go into it. We're actually closer to 50 pounds per cart. I can't find the exact amount. I've tried other cities. People run away from that question. So I'm going to go with 50. Ledyard said around 30. One thing we have to keep in mind is we have very little blue in our city. We have a lot of green. So most of our recycling actually goes in the green currently. So if at 50 pounds, it would cost in London $75.40 per year just in tipping fee per garbage cart. Under this plan, using these numbers, we would just be asking for $84 per year per cart. So that would cover the $75.40, and then leave an additional $8.60 left over. When I met with David Aldridge today, he had one recommendation after taking him through this. He would like to see the option to have a smaller garbage cart and a larger one, so 96 and 65. I just put down $60 because it's a little over 2/3 of the cost. I don't have a number on that, and obviously these numbers could always be changed.
Is that like residents' choice, or how does that?
Yeah, I
how
think
does that-
my prediction is if you drive around, a lot of our residents have 2 garbage carts. And a lot of that is recycling, so a lot of them are going to go back to 1 and 1. But some of them are going to need that extra one. It just gives you an option, or a cheaper option. He wanted to make sure citizens had the option to do it by volume versus the amount of garbage carts. He was big into the volume type of thing. I'm not sure exactly why. It's just what he wanted, and it's not that difficult to do. And if we did say in order for garbage carts or recycling carts, you just put in, you want X amount of this and X amount of that, just different ones.
Okay, so this, but you're still, it's still metered overall based on what you put out.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, so people could choose to have 2 cards for
Sure.
their overflow times a
Yeah.
year.
Because I think a lot of us, we put out one garbage cart, and then I'll use the example, you have a 4th of July party, and you need an additional garbage cart, but that doesn't mean you need the larger extra one all the time. But you may have a little overflow. It gives people a little bit of an option to have a little overflow, or make a friend with a neighbor, and maybe you could drop a bag in there every now and then. Most of our residents, they fall here. If you drive around, there are 2 garbage carts, and they have no recycling. I believe if we had the larger recycling cart and we had the larger garbage cart, a lot of them are going to go back here. And they would fall into the part where this would all be covered under their taxes and there'd be no change except a larger recycling cart. And that's it. So the idea is, I guess, maximizing your bang for your buck, but without affecting the citizens as much as Pay As You Throw would. And that's kind of the concept behind this. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess I just didn't know whether like that offer would require the city to buy more of a can that they don't currently
It would.
have.
It would, but it would allow, actually, there's two things. It would give our citizens more options. And if you go through the compliance plan for the state, they want 3 separate options. We would only have 1. We're getting closer.
Yeah.
With 2, I think you could argue that the recycling one would be 3, and I think you could make a decent argument that you would have 3 options that way. But in this, you only have 2. And part of this is trying to get the state away from telling us what to do by complying with what they want us to do ahead of time. And in that way, we'd be answering a question before they would tell us what to do, that type of thing.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
good with it.
Okay.
I know that the recommendations for, the part about how they pay for it is something that's not a part of this recommendation.
Sure.
We have discussed it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll just keep going down unless anybody have other questions on that concept. Okay, so if you break it down, really what we would be asking each establishment to do is just $7 per month for each additional garbage cart that you would need. If you get picked up twice a week, it's $168 a year, it would be $14 a month. If you use just the example up here at the top, New London would bring in an additional $252 in revenue if you get picked up once a week, and it would be $504 if you get picked up twice a week. Remember, it's going to be, or would be capturing the nonprofits who are using more than one, would be capturing the restaurants and our other commercial businesses. It really wouldn't change the lives of most of our residents, but all of the establishments who are using more than one we would get money for, which hopefully would do the magic thing of reducing taxes or offset to a degree. So if you use South Water Street just as an example, if you go and you count the garbage cans, there's 48 of them, and 26 would fall into the charged category, and just on South Water Street would be an additional $4,368 for New London that we've never been able to capture before. So essentially all of that was zero, and it would be $4,368 moving forward. This gets to what you were saying, Marie, but
This is all predicated on the city picking up the garbage. It's
Absolutely.
not with a private hauler.
right, so there's 2 things. It doesn't, I don't have the private haulers in here at all, but none of this would preclude us from privatization at any point in time. We do have our new trucks coming in, which I think puts us in a bind to a degree, but it can go either way. I'm not sure. In our city, politically, it's very hard to make that happen, but we could go either way. If we can't do it, we could flip over to privatization at any point in time. It doesn't remove that from the table.
I just want to make sure everybody's clear as to
Sure.
what's going on.
If we want to recommend that we look into privatization or the city look into it, I think maybe we should discuss that.
Well, I don't think it's been given a fair hearing, so to speak.
Okay.
And I was impressed with the presentation that was made by the private firm and Mr. Lydell when they came and spoke to us.
I was too. I think one of the problems I had with their presentation, it doesn't mean other groups would not do this. The one thing they didn't talk about is how they would reduce our solid waste. As they said, they would pick up everything, and one of our goals is how are we going to reduce solid waste? Now, granted, they would provide recycling carts and that would do it, but that was pretty much as far as they went. But as you said, I'm not sure if we gave a full.
Well, they presented to us, we didn't develop and tell them what we wanted.
Right. That was my hang up with them, but this does not stop privatization in any way whatsoever. It just doesn't introduce privatization at the same time.
I'm aware.
Okay.
I'm bringing it up for conversational purposes.
Sure.
information.
I'll keep it, maybe when we get to the last page, we can go back to that. I see this as a program that could be calibrated it maybe after 6 months and regulated with a colored or dated or numbered sticker, similar to our old emission sticker. So the lid of a garbage can would get a sticker right on top. I spent a little time talking to a sticker company yesterday. Learned a lot about stickers. I never knew. They have all different kinds of weights, and you would want a 3.5 vinyl with a UV covering that would have a guarantee of 3 years. Otherwise, it fades. And this is the guy I was talking to from Chicago. Interestingly enough, the company he started was purchased by Waste Zero. Just happened to come up in the conversation after a while, but the issue they had is they had a little bit of trouble if we wanted to do barcodes on a sticker. That is a little bit limiting, but he gave me a lot of information that I thought was interesting. If we did a sticker program, they would essentially cost more or less 50 cents per sticker. That was kind of the quote he gave. But a color would signify 2019, and the new color is 2020. So our guys are picking up, it's easy. Here's green, here's red, and if it's not, we don't pick it up. I think that would be the simple concept. Go ahead, Jackie.
What about using the barcodes
Sure.
or the coding
Mhm.
ones? What would that entail? So that we don't have to change every year.
So I think we would have to change every year based on color. So our guys aren't wasting time looking at the year type of thing on the garbage cart, just the color. So it's quick and easy. I mean, I'll admit I've gotten pulled over by the police because my emission sticker was the wrong color. It's quick and easy. If it was the same one but then at a number, I think it'd be more difficult to know who was paid up, that type of thing. I like the color. If you have a different concept, open to whatever you want.
I'll think about that.
Okay. I mean, it's tough. It's color seems to be a simple, quick solution to that type of thing.
And you don't think scanning would be?
You could scan, but our guys are not going to probably go through and scan all day.
But I thought we were gonna have, if we have if this is gonna be making it easier, will we be able to have the extra manpower to be able to do that? To go around and,
I think we would have extra manpower or more hours to do things, but I think that's a big hypothetical. When our guys had come in, I believe it was indicated to us they're already working a lot of extra overtime and they do plowing and different things. So pulling back doesn't mean that we can then go back and abuse them again by having them do more. I'm not sure.
well, my biggest concern with the stickers is that if someone is not paid up, they can steal the sticker from someone else.
Sure. So the stickers, when I had done a little research on them, they're almost impossible to peel off as whole. If you go back to the stickers you put in your windows or you put on the back of your car, if you try to peel them, they're like edged.
Yeah.
So you can't get them off. Granted, you can steal an entire garbage can, but if they're numbered or they're barcoded, you could locate it and bring it back. The other option too with our garbage cans is they can have the RFID chips, which are the radio frequency ID. Ours don't have that currently. If we were to get the new recycling carts, we could have them in there. A lot of cities have them. They don't use them, but it gives us the possibility to do something with them in the future, whether it be tracking or whatever. CJ May in Waterbury, they didn't get them. I was talking to a group in Massachusetts. They got them solely in case they wanted to use them in the future. It's not a large amount more to add the radio frequency ID chips to them, so we could do something like you're saying. So if you're going by and you had this, we could say in this address, so just do whatever you need. There's a bulk waste pickup or whatever you want to do. I think a radio frequency ID for anything new makes sense because it's just planning long term.
Exactly.
The cost is not prohibitive because of that. You're not doubling your price or anything like that. It's just not. It's not worth dealing with it. Just make it happen. Then we have it as an option in the future.
Can that also transmit whether to pick it up or not?
I don't think it can transmit whether to pick it up as you would use this in conjunction with it.
Yeah.
So if you're near it, that radio frequency would have a GPS and then you'd say here. You would connect to like an intranet type of thing versus the internet.
Yeah, real time,
Yeah, yeah, and
real time.
so if our guys are going around and Bob left out a TV on the curb, they can say, go here, or go here for a mattress, or go here, do that type of thing. A lot of cities have them. I'm not sure how many people are using them, but it would be nice to have the option to do something with them in the future.
I mean, if we're getting new garbage, and if we're hopefully getting the funding from SCARA, why not have that set up so that if we wanted to do that in the future, we could?
I agree with you entirely. So SCARA's actually, they've given me 4 separate quotes. I think I handed them out at one of the meetings with the radio frequency ID and without the radio frequency ID. And it's just not, it's very insignificant. So I think it would make sense to add those to whatever we get in the future.
Now, if it's a funding issue, we can always increase the yearly fee.
We could.
Instead of 84, let's make it an even 90.
And the fee here is just an example. As someone else said to me, we could put this forward to council if we agree on it and they like it. And then they could say, well, we'd rather have that be 150. It just depends. I do think I'll be a little sarcastic, but the number 0 is less than 84. So every one of these that we would be bringing in is more than we've ever collected before. And that could go towards the purchase of these or funding other parts in public works or whatever. And that's why the enterprise fund, I think, is so valuable to have. Part of the enterprise fund, in my opinion, I think would make sense is to have a percentage of this set aside for when our tipping fee goes up, that we have a rainy SCURA day fund to protect ourselves. And I think that's what SCURA has done actually for us. They put all their money aside so they can keep our fees low. It makes sense for us to do the same thing. So if they go up $10, we have it there to help our residents moving forward. Planning ahead's okay. I'm not sure we do that enough in our city. We react versus being proactive. And I think kind of what you're saying is being proactive. And it's the same idea. Have this part of it set aside in case our fees go up in the future, that type of thing.
Also, if we go up to, say, the $90 fee, that we are also trying to save for the repairs of the trucks or, new trucks down the line. I want to make sure that the funding is going to this program and not into the general fund. That's another issue.
So one of the parts of the utility aspect is it has to be a dedicated enterprise fund.
Okay.
So whatever percentage of this would go towards, say, A would be the SCURA rainy day, B would be public works, C would be, whatever it might be. As long as there's something attached to it, I think that makes sense. Even something that could go towards the general fund. But I agree, we have to have the enterprise fund there to make it go out. I don't know if our committee would want to recommend how it's doled out, or just it has to have an enterprise fund. I'm not sure how much in the weeds we want to do. Okay. Did you have something on?
Yeah.
Okay. Kind of what Jackie was saying, but to do this, the program would have to be administered yearly or constantly. Once it's set in place, Veolia has a system where they're obviously billing the stormwater and their regular water bills. They could incorporate something like this into their billing structure because they've already set it up. There would obviously be a fee or different things. To go along with that, we could also bill it through the non-tax department. Those are the only 2 options I really see right now to attempt to do something like that. The next one is the enterprise fund, which we kind of talked about.
Veolia handles billing for services they provide.
Sure.
Are you suggesting that they provide billing for service that the city's providing?
Yes,
That's an interesting concept.
it is. In a sense, they would literally just be billing, and then they would be setting up the enterprise fund, and then we go from there. It's an interesting concept, I would agree.
Have you broached that with anybody?
I have. I've talked,
Been warmly embraced?
I would say it was warmly embraced through Veolia's end, but not so much through the city's end.
thought you were going to your coffee shop, never mind.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you. Not that
Um,
you offered, but
So I'll skip the enterprise fund, because we kind of just went over that with
Hi.
these questions. Hi, Alma.
Hey, Alma. Oh, nice crutches. How are you?
it's affecting my life.
You're speedy now. Come on up.
Oh,
You've got a seat.
I gotta, yeah.
Take your time.
Sure, I have some space for this needed line.
I'll keep going while I'm supposed to do that. When you go around our city, we have a lot of extra garbage carts. You'll notice that a lot of people have 4 or 5 and they only use 2. Under this, I think we can collect a lot of those because they wouldn't be used. And if one's broken, we can use a lid, we can use the wheels from one to make a new one type of thing. We just have a lot of extra carts everywhere. We've talked a lot about lids and water in our garbage carts. If a lid is closed, we should pick it up, and if it's not, we don't. With that, we should develop some sort of enforcement plan. That goes back to the ordinances type of things. I think that would fall on Public Works. It may fall on Felix's department. I'm not sure. We have to enforce that type of thing. You'd also go into live, work, invest. We're on page 3. We live, work, invest. Well, if we have just this on our corners with the lids closed, it just looks better. I think New London can do better. We can clean ourselves up. We just have to choose to do it. The next one is each establishment will get a 96-gallon recycling cart and 1 additional cart if needed. They could have another one if they need it. We have to police the recycling carts. With the larger recycling carts, and we've talked about this in our meetings, I think New London should investigate if carts can be picked up every other week. They do this in Ledger, they do this in Waterford. If it's deemed feasible, I believe our guys, this would free up time for them to do a lot of the bulky waste pickup. It would free up time to do the yard waste and different things. But it has to be an experiment because we don't know. So if you did a timetable of introducing the recycling carts on, say, X month, and you took 2 months to see if they're, how full they are. If our guys come back and say, look, we're picking these up every week and they're a third full, it doesn't make sense to continue to pick them up every other week. It would make more sense to do it every other week, which frees up time, hopefully reduce overtime and different things, and try it. But we have to introduce recycling carts before moving to that type of system.
Brian, I just have a question for
Yeah.
Councilor Olson. Have we ever in the past, historically, ever done a study on a timetable for pickups?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay,
You can be clear bi-weekly.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't find anything.
okay,
I think our routes are actually set in the 70s, and
yeah.
the way our routes work now, it's north to south, and that's pretty much it. Yeah, I haven't found any studies or any.
If there's been any change, going back to, it's relatively recent, when Keith Chapman was our Public Works Director, when we had holidays or if there were any issues during the basic Monday through Friday work, we would pick up on Saturday. And that was relatively new, because otherwise you'd wait a week, you wouldn't, if they didn't pick it up.
What year was that?
I'm sorry?
What year?
That's going back just before Darrell, so about 10, 11, 12 years ago.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
So going to the next part here, you brought it up actually with the work week. We're going to have new trucks, and one of the big complaints is they always break down. If we have new trucks, can we go to a 4-day work week where they're more reliable? Maybe Monday to Thursday, or one of what you just said, Marty. If you go Monday to Thursday and Monday's a holiday, it pushes it to Tuesday to Friday, thus avoiding that Saturday, which is not good. Try to do during the weekdays. And then our transfer station hours currently are 7:30 to lunchtime, have an hour off, and then they're closed at 3. For any of this to have any effect whatsoever, our transfer station has to be open for lunch, and we have to open later and close later. And I believe we also have to be open on Saturdays. Otherwise, those who are going to try to do the right thing by removing items from our solid waste are not gonna do it. They're just gonna throw it in here because it's a lot easier. So instead of taking your electronics to the solid waste, or to the transfer station, and your oils and your metals and whatever else, just throw it in here. It's easy. It doesn't make sense to go to the transfer station, but every item we get out of here and to this transfer station to transfer out of New London at no cost to us, the better off we are. And I use the simple statement, we can choose to pay $58 a ton, or we can choose to do the right thing and get it out of the garbage. Batteries is another one. It just makes sense. Pull them out, get them to the transfer station. Part of the utility is there has to be incentives offered. That's a tough one. The simple one is if you create less, you pay less. That's or you pay nothing in this case. There also we do the food diversion through the schools. I wonder, can we do some sort of food diversion for our restaurants or anybody else, or maybe you get a reduction if you sign up for that program. If anybody has any other ideas on incentives, let me know. I couldn't find any in our meetings or different things that really incentivized except for make less, pay less. That was pretty much it. Alma, this gets back to what you said, though, the last part on here is I don't think we've ever done a study of our trucks and whether we're using them efficiently. Like, do we pick up at the right time on Bank Street when it's really busy? I live near Ocean Beach. We pick up on Friday, and we have all of our trucks going around to all the guests. We need to look at it and see, are we doing the best thing? You know, I believe the routes were set up in the 70s. A few things have changed. Are we doing it the right way? Are we doing it the best way? Are we wasting time? And I think our public works department has to do that and make sure, and either rely on our guys to give input, or maybe Brian's here or someone else, but look at it all and see if we're doing things the right way or not the right way. That's kind of the notes here. Does anybody have any questions, comments, anything?
Well,
Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
for people who have extra governments, how do you keep track of who has to pay?
Who has to pay or who has paid?
No, exactly how is the billing going to work?
Sure. So under this, it would be billed through Veolia. So each year you would have a sticker that you would either have to go pick up, or Veolia would send you, and it would be billed through Veolia or billed through our tax department. And so if you have two garbage carts, you'd be responsible for the $84 for the additional one.
So would you be paying that every week?
No, I would, every year, I think would be the simple thing. Just make it as simple as possible. You get a yearly sticker for $84 and you're done.
This is in addition to your one allotment of each,
Yeah.
Oh, so it's a one-time charge?
One-time charge.
Annually.
Yeah, sorry.
Not a one.
Not every week. Oh no, what a nightmare.
Now, did you look into the scheduling? If you wanted to go from Monday through Thursday or Tuesday through Friday, the union contract. Because if it falls on a holiday, and then that's what you're trying to get away from.
Sure. Any of that stuff would have to go through the union negotiating process,
Okay.
but I don't think the committee's job is to put forth ideas on how to make it happen. It's not to work on the nitty-gritty or in the weeds. It's say, hey, can we do a 4-day work week? And then it's on someone else to work it out if we can do that, if it makes sense. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah.
I mean,
Any of these changes will require
Right.
negotiation.
Exactly.
Right, absolutely.
Exactly.
Multiple different, but it's a good point. I mean, it's a recommendation, right? I mean,
Right.
if the committee says, oh, you may, it may be more cost effective to look at that, and the union might consider it, or they might say, no, we're good, this is part of a contract, and then so be it. That's just the way.
The only reason I'm asking is because I'm in the union and
Yeah, we have a contract.
I have a contract,
Yeah, I
exactly.
understand.
Exactly, so everything is binding, so, you can't go changing stuff without,
negotiation.
and I just want to make sure that we're not
Well,
stepping,
if they went to a 4-day pickup, would they not have something to do elsewhere on the 5th day?
It could be, I just wonder, we're 27,000 people, we have 10,500 stops per week, we're only 5.5 miles. If we have trucks that are reliable, I mean, we've heard it over and over and over again, the truck's broken, we can't do this, we can't do that. If everything's working, can we do it in a shorter amount of time? And then, as you said, on the 5th day, maybe do other things. Maybe it's not possible. I don't know, but I think it would be worth looking into to see if we can do something.
Well, for one thing, it'd be to reduce the overtime.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and that shouldn't have any problem with the union.
no, I'm talking about going from Tuesday to Friday,
Sure.
when they are working Monday through Friday. And if you take away because a lot of the holidays fall on a Monday. So you taking that away from them, now it will be an issue.
Yeah, and then this is merely.
This is just, I'm just,
Yeah, this is
throwing it
just
out
a
there.
recommendation. I
Exactly.
mean, with
You're talking
everything that
about
we do, we do consider
holiday.
union.
Because, well, example, if they work Saturday because of a Monday holiday, or typically the Mondays, they're gonna get paid the full week.
It's just moved over a day.
Right. You're not talking about eliminating.
No. I mean, it is possible you could do, I guess, 4 days and you do 10 hours a day if you wanted to. But we also have in our contract that they can be off at a specific time. It just can't be before that time. So if you did a 4-hour or 5-day work week and everything was working, maybe our guys could get off earlier during the day and you still get paid the same amount. It's just, as everybody's saying, it has to be negotiated through the union. It's just, can we do that? I don't know. I mean, a lot of it comes down to, do we have the manpower and do we have the trucks to make that happen? And today we don't. I don't think we could even attempt to do that. I mean, the amount of times I hear, well, this one's broken, or that one's broken, and so you limit from 5 trucks to 4 trucks, and you just can't get it done.
Right.
Maybe in here you haven't, I mean, I think you said new trucks, but the new trucks aren't mentioned in here as a point
Okay.
about why you think that might be possible.
Okay.
And maybe, right, like they have other work to do, it's still a full-time.
Oh, yeah,
We're
yeah.
not necessarily just trying to cram more work into fewer days.
Yeah, and I look at it as, in a sense, trying to eliminate some of the dangers for our crews. I mean, we had Paul Gills come in and he talked about the dangers, and he told me that if you combine the fire department and the police department,
My bad.
he loses more sleep over the public works guys than those two, which is a little bit hard to believe, but he's the risk guy, so I'll believe him.
Like the Saturday, to clearly say that the Saturday opening is, and also what you said about changing the hours, that's not on here, that's sort of public convenience.
Sure. Yeah, I think that the hours for the transfer station goes directly to up here. I can draw the line type of thing, if that, is that what you're kind of
Yeah.
asking? Okay. Alma, you had questions?
Oh, just yeah, it says one smaller 65-gallon cart will be offered at $60 per pickup per.
Oh, so you might have missed that. I met with David Aldridge from Skura today.
Uh-huh.
And he had no comments except for he wants to make sure that these over here also had a volume option.
Oh, okay, that's great. Good.
That was it. That was his only
Yeah.
comment, to which I went,
And there is a reduction because, $60 versus 84, right?
Right.
So, okay, good.
he just wanted something smaller.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and what it does do, so we'll just use you for an example for fun, since you're here.
Yeah, we have 2-person household, I mean, yeah.
So
we
if
don't
you
need
happen to have a
meter.
96, 2 96s, you might just say, I do need that extra one, but I don't need
Right.
the massive one. So
Right.
just have an extra one that you use a few times a year at $60. There is another concept that I've actually seen where you buy stickers, or you buy, like if you go to an airline, you have the tag on your bag, on your luggage, and you would buy those and say they're each $3 to $5, and you put them on your garbage cart. And so you overcharge. So if you buy those at $5 each, it would cost you $250 a year. But you have the option to use that anytime you want. But you're gonna know it's gonna cost you a lot more money to use that. I'm not sure that's the best option for New England. I think just to keep it simple with the 2 card options is the easiest method to do. Anything else on that page? The next page is kind of similar, but it's called the Cliff Notes version. I get asked a lot, I'm sure you have too, what is the tipping fee? So I just kind of put it on here. The tipping fee is the fee to dispose of garbage by the ton. And then the numbers on here are exactly the same as the previous page. But what I did do is someone is reading this quickly. Under this plan, if an establishment puts out 1 garbage cart per week, the only change they would experience is a larger recycling cart provided by New London. That's it. If an establishment needed an additional garbage cart or carts, the fee would be $84 per additional garbage cart per pickup day per year, and then $7 per month or 23 cents per day. And then the chart on the bottom, basically you can find yourself where might you fit in this type of thing. So it's more of a graphic type of thing. And then at the bottom, Felix Reyes, when I took him through this, suggested that if you have more than 4 garbage carts or 1 recycling cart, it should be corralled, like with a fence around the type of thing. And it goes back to live, work, and invest. And if you take that size, it essentially means a dumpster. In our city, you're actually technically supposed to have it enclosed anyways. He thought it would make sense to enclose if you have 4 or more. I put it in there. I'm not sure if anybody else has any other thoughts on this page, comments, questions. It's pretty much the same as the other page, except you can kind of, I think you had this idea.
About enclosing it?
No, this, putting it in that.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, a
Yeah.
chart type of thing. Yeah, not the enclosing part.
yeah, here I am.
Yeah, there's Maureen.
I'll be okay.
I just want to point out, that's it.
So currently, right now, I mean, if we're looking, let's say that we have a multi-family building, and they've got, currently they're using 1 recycle bin and 4 regular garbage bins.
Yep.
Is their cost now, does it now go from 0 to $336 per year for additional costs?
So you said they had how many garbage carts?
So if they get 4 additional on top of the allotment?
Yes.
Okay.
So it would be $336. So yes, they would go from 0
Zero
to
to
336. Unless they're getting picked up twice a week. Then it would be double just because their establishment gets picked up twice a week.
So now that this is still per establishment,
Yep.
so it's up to the landlord
Yes,
to
yes.
deal with the payment as a whole,
Yes.
and then deal with how to distribute that with their tenants.
It's not per unit, it's per building.
Per establishment. So
So if a place has 10 units,
it gets 1. And I have heard the argument that it should get 1 per unit or at least 2. And I think if you take a house that has the same square footage as a multifamily home, it may be producing 1 while the multifamily home is producing 4, but they're paying the same amount in taxes. Under this plan, it's just if you create more, you have to pay more for each a garbage can. Maybe we should discuss that. Maybe we should.
well, I mean, I'm just thinking as a landlords may find this to be prohibitive.
I tend to agree. They may, but they are creating more, and it is a utility. It would be a utility under this, so they should be paying more.
We should probably lay out the fact that this, even though it looks like a lot, $336, it's still considerably less than them going to a private hauler. Which is some of them will do, businesses will do that, and some multi-families will do that as well, so.
It is way lower
Yeah.
than a private hauler. Some of our businesses don't really have the option because we don't provide pickup every day, so they have to, do it every day through a private hauler. We're just not.
But our current landlords are accustomed to getting the service provided, in essence, I hate to say for free.
It is for free.
But within the tax bill.
Absolutely.
And
I think-
and that's one of the reasons why there's a big bulk on the pay as you throw from landlords.
Right.
They thought they were getting screwed.
Right, and I think just to add to this would be a visual, I think would be very, very helpful. A slide that says, look, it's 2 things. Number 1 is that if you compare it to a single-family home
Yeah.
with the same amount of square footage that is doing just fine with a 1-1, right? Versus a same square footage building, and they're paying the same amount of taxes, right? It's the same.
That's,
It's absolutely the same, that this is how we deem this number to be appropriate. Now, the incentive, the flip side of that is the incentive to educate the employees on what's recyclable.
absolutely.
Don't put that in the trash because then you're overflowing the trash can. That's recyclable, it should go in the recyclable bin.
I 100% agree with you. Actually, the next page is going to talk about that too.
And I think this is, I mean, I think pay-as-you-throw was harder for landlords to administer because it would, I mean, they would either have to give bags to their tenants or
And it's
expect their tenants to buy bags, and then they would be accountable for
Would be
non-participation.
accountable.
I think this is easier.
The other thing I would say too is under pay as you throw, they are out money before they even start. Because if you wake up in the morning and you blow your nose, that goes in the garbage bag and that's your first dollar. Under this, you're at least getting one to start with at no cost. And that was the concern I think a lot of citizens had. I wake up and I'm out money. Under this, we're not changing anything. The only real difference is you would be getting a larger recycling cart, which that's what people are clamoring for. Just give me a larger recycling cart and see how it goes. So I tend to agree with you. Did you have more on?
No, I'm good.
Did you have a should they get more than one, or is it?
No, I'm just thinking out loud as you're going through.
It's one of the sticking points that I heard from a couple of people, but I think Alma, you illustrated it best with the different or the same square footage. If we just treat each establishment exactly the same, it makes it easy. This isn't a hard concept, I don't think, to grasp. I think pay as you throw is a hard concept because it was such a change. And
If it's being, administered being universally and fairly,
That's
that's
it.
fair. I mean, if it's,
I did have one person say to me, "This isn't fair," and I said, "Well, what part's not fair?" And that was the end of the conversation. To me, it seems fair. At least on face value, it does. It's treating
And it
everybody.
doesn't require you to go out and buy bags.
No, and that's the thing. And what it does do is, if you're a church or you're an education or whatever, a different kind of nonprofit, if you're using more than one, we can grab all those and bring that into the fold that we've never been able to do before. Any more comments on this page? All right. So the last page are, I would call them odds and ends of recycling or different suggestions that had come up over time, either from our guests, from the committees, or whatever. Obviously, as needed, rewrite our ordinances. That's an easy one. That's number one. For number two, a couple people, when I presented this, they wanted to know if our committee was going to kind of go on forever. And
was not the intent.
no, it wasn't. But I do wonder if it would make sense to create a smaller version of this to review whatever we come up with, and then recommend changes in course, report recycling rates, and other pertinent information to council. I put twice a year right there, just to have it there. And just kind of keep up. I know we have the sustainability committee, but this is a little bit different. And I'm not sure what anybody here might think about doing.
Can I ask a question? Bob, are you on the sustainability committee?
Yes, I am.
Do you look at that as under your purview, or do you look at this as redundant?
There is a dichotomy in that group, and there's the one side where we're trying to fit everything to the template of the categories of sustainable CT, and that very same group of people who, there's those of us who want just to see more things sustainable, and then there's the other group that has to fit it to the template, get the points, and get the plaque on the wall, and that's their focus. So keeping an eye on changes in ordinances and how these things are implemented is never going to be part of that sustainable CT team. And I will admit, I was one of the people who gave Brian the feedback that this committee is not quite done with its work yet. Just my opinion.
Sure.
But we've made progress.
Come on.
One of the things when CJ May came in, he talked about is when they did the grant with closed loop fund, if he didn't exist, they can't get grants. So number 3 is in a reply to that, where we should have an employee, we have Brian Sear, but he's Public Works. We should have an employee, sign up an employee or hire a solid waste recycling coordinator to report to the state of Connecticut, monitor whatever we come up with, and continue education. I'm not sure Brian Sear can do all that himself.
No, I know he can't.
Yeah, I to be honest, when I simply made the Christmas tree flyer, I think he went, "Oh, thank you so much," and it only took 10 minutes. But I mean, he's running around and doing all kinds of things. But it also opens us up to possibly apply for grants in the future as there's a point person or designee or whatever it is. I think Brian does a great job, but he's being pulled in a million directions at all the time. I'm not sure that's fair.
Yeah, I agree, and we really do need somebody dedicated to this position. I'm curious, have we benchmarked with Norwich or other municipalities? Do they have a dedicated, whether it's called a recycle coordinator or sustainability manager, whatever?
I don't believe they do. And when I met with David Aldridge today, he actually said we are the only community that has a task force of anything studying this. But I don't know if anybody else has a designee.
You know, they might have a larger, robust, a much more robust public works where they have a designated employee.
Right. We just don't have that right now.
Yeah.
And I think if you were to hire someone, we would quickly recoup. Just through education and getting people to recycle properly.
Yeah.
Even if it's a part-time, half-time type of person. Or I know we don't have a blight officer right now. Did he retire?
Yeah, he
Friday?
did.
Retired, but he's family moved.
Right. So, I mean, that space is empty as well. And blight goes along with this to a degree.
Bulky waste.
Yeah.
Do you think you should add your collected notes on where some of that grant money might come from?
Sure.
So they can just
Absolutely.
apply.
But, yeah. And there are lots of grants out there. We just don't have
Yeah,
the ability to seek them out.
and yeah, it's not
Well, we have a
necessarily.
grants writer, we've got on staff.
Right, but I mean, a point person is looking into recycling and garbage all the time, and pointing them out. I don't think we have.
No, not that, but listen, we do.
Oh, yeah, no, I agree. But someone finding them all the time and telling the grant writer to work on it.
One thing too, that I just was mulling over as through conversation, and it's back to labor, and it's not predictable, is when we have, in the winter months in particular, heavy snow, and we pull our men off the garbage trucks and they're running plows. We don't pick up garbage or recycling.
We're fortunate to a
It doesn't
degree,
happen often, but it does happen periodically.
and we're fortunate to a degree, our population diminishes in the winter, so we don't have to pick up as much. But it still snows. And we still sometimes double up on a day for garbage, the next day. But unfortunately, in the winter too, it gets dark. I feel like at 4 o'clock sometimes, and our guys are going through at night, and it's a safety issue. It stinks.
Just something we ought to be, I think, cognizant of.
Absolutely.
I mean, we're not fully staffed. Each section of Public Works has got a full complement.
Yeah, and I think this year we're very, very fortunate with little to no snow. It's been a good year. I think Maureen mentioned number 4 before. And I think, Alma, you mentioned it too today. We don't really have anything for Welcome to New London or a rental guidebook for our new residents, and we should. Solid waste and recycling needs to be part of that to tell people what to do, what not to do, where to go, all that information. For number 5, we have random public garbage cans around our city. By state law, they actually have to be accompanied by a recycling can. We don't really do that. So we should either add a recycling cart to them or remove them. Brian Sears says there's a royal pain to empty, because a lot of those little metal bars around, you have to reach inside and pull them out and do them all manually. He would just be in favor of taking them out.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this has been a very contentious issue, right, downtown Bing Street, talking about
The fun bags?
the metal rings with the bags in it. There's been a lot of discussion about that, and I would say if you outweigh it, there are many reasons why not to have those.
Sure.
And especially with this, if we're gonna have a garbage can, if I'm walking up there with a recyclable piece of, an item, we should give the public an option, not just garbage. So, I am in favor of taking those out and putting in a recycle. We've seen it many times, they're half garbage and half recycled, you get the option
Yeah.
of putting them in each
As long as we
side.
can empty them, that's the key. And the ones we have now are royal pain to get everything out of. But
And they're not as sturdy, and they break, and then garbage ends up on the floor, and there's just a lot of reasons why they're not very.
right, it's just like something
Popular.
I noticed driving around. A big thing actually from SCURA is continuing to promote composting and food diversion. We're not ideal for composting, obviously, in London, but we do have options of diverting food out of our solid waste stream. It represents about 30%.
A
And
lot.
it is, and 80% of it is water. So we love to move water around, but if we can get out of that, that would be better. Alma, to kind of what you just said, number 7, in New London, we don't have places to really get rid of certain items like batteries, plastic bags, or whatever that other places have, like Target, Walmart, and our city buildings, our firehouses, possibly the police station, could have these. And if we are able to pick up recycling every other week, then our guys could have a route where they go and they pick up the odds and ends of just getting more of that stuff out of our solid waste stream. We just don't provide those things to our citizens. You're kind of on your own, and that's unfortunate.
So there's other municipalities that have active programs. They have it like maybe twice a year or once a quarter, where they say, okay, on this day is Recycle Day.
Yeah.
They do it on Earth Day, like a lot of them do it on Earth Day, where that is the day that the public can come and drop off their batteries or drop off their electronics or whatever it is. You're right, we don't promote that. We need to.
Yeah.
Absolutely, that's a good call out. I think you can also combine number 7 and 8, because when you say all New London buildings must lead by example, specifically all New London public buildings should have an active recycle program.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
There should be some kind of policy that has to do with recycling, actively recycling and sustainability. I don't believe that we have that, and we should. So we can't expect the public to get on board when we haven't established our own backyard, but it's easy to do, so.
And you have to know
But that's a problem well beyond recycling and garbage.
I don't disagree with you, Councilor Wilson. That's the point.
You'll just put that in big bold letters right at the top. Jack, you had a question or comment?
Yeah, I have, back to number 4, just real quick.
Yeah.
If a new landlord buys a building, we should give them that information.
I agree entirely. Actually, Felix would love to have that information because when someone moves in, he's supposed to reach out and communicate with them and get them whatever, and make it easy. But we have to be good representatives for ourselves. Get the information to us. So if Alma moves into town and she doesn't know where the transfer station is, you have to tell them. I mean, not all of us are going to seek out the information. Some of it has to be given.
I lived here for 4 years. I just found out just this past year that we had a recycling.
I'm glad they're on the committee. You're the prime example, Jackie.
And the other one was the, I had put out, I spoke with Quincy about this, was I use a lot of batteries, and what I ended up doing was taking a plastic can, and clear one, marking it batteries, putting it in there, and actually putting it out on the curb next to my recycling.
Sure.
And the guys picked it up. So that's something that maybe
If they're willing to do that and there's a place to, because I actually asked, is there a place to put a TV on a truck? And
No.
they said, in the back. But, if there was a place to put a TV on top of the truck, but batteries are a lot smaller. Because as long as they're clearly marked and our guys have instructions, I mean, go right back to all New London employees must lead by example. So if they know that this is marked batteries and they know to pick it up, the hard part is how do you get everybody on board to do it? And make sure our employees are picking it up. And we've heard many times where a truck goes by and they pick up recycling and they throw it all in the back of the garbage truck. And it could be for many reasons. Maybe one of the truck was broken that day, or they don't want to go back, or someone had a bag around a bunch of recycling. So like, you know what, it's garbage. It's not worth searching through it. But I agree with you. If it's clearly marked and we have the ability to do it, we should do it. If Quincy says they pick it up that way, great. He's the guy to ask. He's the one in charge. So there's just a couple more on here. I'll skip number 9. We kind of covered the transfer station stuff throughout this, but I sent the information on the bottle bill. So essentially what that means, the short version is the state is looking to go from 5-cent return policy to 10 cents. And what it does is it moves that extra 5 cents back to redemption centers so they can actually build them. It's not cost effective to work on a 1 cent return, so they would have maybe 4 or 5 or 6 cents. If that does get passed, which may or may not, it's been years. I talked to Felix about maybe recruiting a bottle redemption center in New London just to make, again, easier for our residents to get rid of bottles and cans. We can throw them in our garbage on Bank Street and other places, and then all we're doing is transferring all those 5 and 10 cents cans up to Preston, and we're going to burn them, and we're going to pay $58 a ton. It doesn't make sense. We don't have enough options for our city. But I don't know if it's going to get passed. If it doesn't get passed, it's not really worth the effort, but I hope it does. At our schools, you're not the best one to grab the door.
That article was sent as well. It said that glass was the biggest contaminant for broken glass.
Right.
Too.
Yeah, it's interesting.
It seems like we're going to have to do more separation eventually.
I think eventually, although I asked Willie Waste and Tim DeVivo, his brother, it's Tim and Tom who own the company, they didn't seem to indicate it was as big of an issue as the newspapers make it out to be. That's what he indicated to me. I mean, he's the guy. But I do know there's a new type of thing in Pennsylvania, which actually I believe the DeVivos are working on. They set aside a place to put all of their glass, and they ship it to Pennsylvania, and they somehow put it through a carbon machine or whatever, and they basically create new rocks that weigh virtually nothing. And so there was a collapse of a retaining wall on a highway, and instead of filling it all in with dirt and heavy rocks, they were able to use these new super lightweight ones, so there was no pressure against the retaining wall, but it served its purpose because it filled in the gap. But instead of having all the rock and the heaviness pushing that way, it was just the reused glass, and through all that process. I also know it's fairly cheap. It's $4 million to build one of those processing centers versus an anaerobic digester, which is about $20 million. That's an aside, sorry. I just thought it was neat. If you can make rocks that are super lightweight and are super strong, kind of like lava, where it's that type of thing. There's a couple more on here. This goes back to our truck inefficiencies. We pick up our garbage at our schools. We go around all our kids because we pick it up during the day. And I wonder if we could do it before school. There's no reason for us to drive around all the cars and all the kids and all that type of thing. I actually asked David Aldridge this today. For number 12, I say continue to develop the relationship and work with SCURA on a weekly and monthly basis to keep New London up to date on recycling and solid waste trends that might affect our future decisions. I asked him if New London had a relationship before our committee started, and he pretty much said no. in one word.
Thank you.
So he was in favor of continuing that, and I feel, I don't know how everybody else feels, that David's been great. He's come to our committee meetings, he's gone to Neighborhood Alliance, he's been on your show, a couple shows, TV and radio. And I think he's helped us along the way, being honest and blunt and informative also. And then the last one on here is our private hauling contracts. The private hauler in the city picks up garbage and they drive it to Preston, and we charge them $62 per ton. We have to then pay $58 out of that 62 back to SCURA, so they essentially hop on our contract. If we were to raise our rates just a little bit, for every dollar we raise it, we would have another $9,500 in revenue. Their other option is they can go up to Preston and pay a lot more, or they can continue to go through us. It's a small fee. That contract comes up July 1st every year, and it's up to Brian Sear, Public Works, to make the decision. It's just a simple way to bring in more revenue to the city. I think that's all I have.
What's your?
And until this committee was set up, and Brian fleshed this out, quite frankly, this was not common knowledge.
I would say it wasn't common knowledge, and it wasn't done every year. And so every private hauling truck in our city has to pay $250 to haul in our city as well. And then all the recycling comes to us, and we are able to get the money for that if it stays at a negative. But it's a simple one with a flick of a pen. You can add $1 or $2 onto that and bring the money in. This is what I've kind of put together.
Can I,
Yeah.
going back to here, can the tipping fee, the 58 per ton, can you add some information about how SCARA supports that, and maybe some average rates that
Sure.
other municipalities are paying, so that
So I can. I've been trying not to compare ourselves to other places because I get the feedback that's not New London.
just throw SCARA in there, it's all done.
But I will say, just for a second, I will say Old Lyme pays 73. I talked to Milton, Massachusetts yesterday. They pay 82. Hartford's around 95, I believe. Hartford area. Waterbury's 95. If you go out to Long Island, it's over 100. So when we say 58, it's really low. But you have to explain to people we're very lucky because we have SCURA, because they think, wow, that's really high, but it's not. Like you said, look around. Here's where we are. We're very lucky that we're at 58. We're very lucky we have SCURA, and that's why I think developing that relationship and keeping it going is so important, because we could be at 100. And you two, as counselors, I don't think you'd enjoy the budget coming up. And, oh, sorry, we've doubled our tipping fee and figure out how to cover 11,000 tons of garbage. It would be a nightmare, but I can put that together easily.
One thing I think, in relation to our charge, I think just in terms of our group, you've done a terrific job in terms of garnering support. You've went out and you've showed this, you've been talking to stakeholders, and well beyond, I might add. But are we able to document that we're actually meeting the goals of 1 and 2?
Marty, I would actually almost say number 3 is harder, meaning because if we provide recycling carts, we're going to increase recycling because we have almost no blue in our city. And that should reduce solid waste. Having to pay for it it's the same thing as pay as you throw, should make people question whether they want to throw it away.
It needs to be explained, that it's clear to how we're accomplishing our goal. It just can't, I don't think we can come in there and just sprinkle some magic dust and everything happens.
Sure.
Everything's polite and nice.
Yeah, I do think, I'm making some assumptions that if you provide a recycling cart, people are going to recycle. I don't know if we can prove that until you try it. I know I can say I can drive around and say that people are recycling next to their garbage can a lot, but they don't have a receptacle to put it in.
And that's a problem. Or people, I've had people complain to me, well, I don't have a blue bucket. I can't recycle. Well, that's not true, but that's the
mentality.
Without the blue bucket, I can't recycle. And geez, I use a purple, whatever the maroon one is out in East Lyme. That's the
one you have.
So, they pick it up, and it's not blue.
Go ahead, Rick.
Is this an instance where we can't provide stats that are not in London? simple things that have happened. CJ,
Yeah, I can easily give you Waterbury that in a year when they provided recycling carts, their recycling rate went up 50%.
There's documentation, buttress the argument, absolutely.
Unfortunately for their solid waste, hasn't reduced their solid waste.
And you don't use that.
That's, but I think too, in general, solid waste continues to go up because of how we buy things in our world today.
The economy's better as well. We're buying more stuff.
Right, and with a lot of us buying more stuff from Amazon or other places, we're bringing more stuff into our house. I use the simple example, when I was younger, I'd go to the store and I'd buy a steak and it would come in a little, I don't know, wrap, and you probably burn it or whatever, and now you go and you get a little styrofoam thing, and you get a diaper, and you get a plastic wrap, and you get a little piece of paper on top, and then you get it in a plastic bag, and in the past, everything would go away. You burn the paper and you eat the steak, and there's no waste. So how do we get away from that? But that's past the committee, but we have to understand, I'm not sure if we can reduce some of the waste. We're going to be gradually going up, but I understand your point. I can find some documentation, maybe, or come up with something to bolster number one and number two. Alma, did you have a question?
No.
Okay. Why don't I take we're going to be done in a minute, but why don't I take a question from Bud?
So, at first, I want to preface my comment, but I think you guys did a great job. I think you went above and beyond the call of duty here. One of the things I think we're really missing the boat on, I realize this wasn't your mandate, but I'd really like to see this group going and really advocate for recycling. I think if we had a recycling coordinator and the education, I think that would pay for itself.
Okay.
And I think that there's a lot of valuable stuff here. One of the bills that came up when we were talking to Nolan the other day, that there is a deposit bill already to add the stupid little nip bottles. I've been doing cleanup since 1974, and I'm so tired of picking those out of storm drains, you know?
Sure. So, let me talk to you after, because we have 9 minutes or 7 minutes before you guys go to council.
I want to get the budget, step into the next room.
For us, Don Vendetto's asked me to come and give an update on where we are on April 15th. I'm not sure if we should, or the committee feels strongly we should go in this direction, or I should just kind of give a general update, and I'm wondering how everybody here feels about this whole concept. I know.
You want to go around the room?
Yeah, go ahead, Alma. Or Marty can.
I mean, I think the general concept is, as you've been doing, I think is appropriate. Locking us into something, I don't know if we're quite there yet.
Okay. Jack.
I think you should go for it.
Okay. Alma.
Well, I agree with Jackie. And I'll tell you why. Because the intent of this committee, this task force, was not to go on forever and ever and ever. I mean, we tasked you with a very, very difficult challenge in that.
Thanks.
And I think this is a lot of work. I mean, I'm really impressed with the continuous effort in the meetings, the side meetings, and the bottom line, and I think you just said it a couple minutes ago, is that you can't have a program if you don't give the public a tool, and that tool is the recycling bin. That's the bottom line. So I think with this plan, you're starting there, and so I would present it. I would present this. There's a couple of different things. I know that you had some suggestions and comments, but bring it to the council. And Marty made a point that said, well, we're not this isn't going to happen overnight, right?
Sure.
And I'll tell you why. In 4 minutes, we're stepping into the other room for the budget, right? So some of these things have to do with budget issues, like having a dedicated person as a recycling coordinator, the bins, having somebody apply for the grant for the bins. I mean, that's all going to take some time. It's going to take some manpower.
Okay. Let me get everybody else, because I know you guys have to go.
Yeah, so that's my opinion.
Go ahead,
I
Bob.
think it's a good sort of compromise between what we have and the yellow bag type of thing.
Okay.
So I'm all for it.
Okay. Maria?
I'm pretty happy with it after you met with 26 other people to review
I tried.
it and edit it from there.
you got more.
Yes, I was gonna say, I mean, the buckets, recycling buckets, to me, should be the low-hanging fruit. That should be the easy one.
Oh, well, not if we pay for it, it's $500,000.
Yeah, but if the goal is to increase recycling, then how are you gonna do it? And this is how you're gonna do it, you have to make that investment.
Well, I know, and that's why there is some creative suggestions on how, we could do a zero interest loan, we can do a grant, I mean, there are some options out there,
Yeah.
without the taxpayers having to pay for that.
I should go for that,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
Just
absolutely.
don't go to the taxpayer first, so they relax.
This is not going to the taxpayers and say, we're gonna raise your taxes or we're gonna charge you some exuberant fee for,
I think it's the opposite.
it's the
actually.
opposite, yeah, so I'm pretty content with it.
Go ahead, Marie.
I think what Alma was suggesting, not literally, but another page, which is a implementation plan that
That's a great
recognizes
discussion, yeah.
the actual timeline of, for example, the budget,
Okay.
existing budget, not naming all those things, not naming the numbers, but
Okay. That's
I like timelines.
Okay.
Strategic
Just
plans.
earned your keep.
Yeah. Then you can check that one off. This was Maureen's idea. Okay, well, I can go through it. I mean, I have comments from everybody on things to refine to a degree or add to it. But I mean, my big concern is the general concept is sound. And I mean, I have no objection going to council April 15th and saying, here's where we are, and getting reaction from that.